Shylah Joie Hill, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, my darling.
I am so thrilled to have you back. Um, One of the things I love about this podcast is just that we get to know people over time. And so over the years, we have visited and talked a lot about your story, and I'll put links to the previous episodes in the show notes so people can just real deep dive into Shylah Joie Hill. But Shylah Joie Hill, you've had some changes recently, and I would love for you to catch us up on your life.
Well, for one, I'm now Shylah Joy Hill. um, I should have said AKA Dylan Hill, but I had obviously on previous episode I talked about my transition and how I transitioned. Gosh, almost I think we're going towards 5 years ago at this point, and it was one of those things that I think every person who's ever transitioned has that moment of like, do I change my name? What do I want my name to be? And I kind of got lucky that my mom named me Dylan with a Y, which is like the unisex spelling of that name. And so I just thought, oh, well, that's unique. Everybody already knows me as that. So I'll just make it simple and keep it as that, while also always having a part of me that was still like very interested in having a different name, but nothing ever suited me. Like, I would look in baby name books. I would do like, name generators online. It was like nothing that I looked up ever really stuck. And I guess it was a few months back, I had that thought again of like maybe I should play around with the idea of changing my name, mainly just because I feel like the last 2 years of my life I've really had just like a rebirth of just doing life on purpose, you know, shedding all of the parts of me that I'm not. And I think anytime people go through significant changes in life, you always want to, I guess, kind of celebrate that in some way ceremoniously. And I thought, well, now would be a good a time as any to, if I'm going to change my name, why not do it when I truly feel like I've had a rebirth of who I am? Not that I'm a different person, it's all, different facets of the same person. But I started doing the whole like searching again, let's find a name, and hit a wall, couldn't find anything. And then I later that day got on TikTok and I was just like scrolling through, and I came across this video where this woman was telling her mom that she was pregnant, and the mom was so excited. And she said the daughter's name, and the daughter's name was Shyla. And when I heard that name, I just felt like electricity like run through me. And it was like, you know, it just made like my hair stand up. And I thought, there's something about that. I like that. It's very feminine. It's very unique. I've never heard that name before in my life. And so I started looking it up, and I have found different meanings of it depending on, different cultures. So the Native American meaning of Shyla is daughter of the mountain, which anyone who knows me knows, like I am a daughter of the mountains. That's where I feel the most closest to God and life, and that's where I go to find my peace. And so I loved that meaning. And then when I looked up some other meanings of it, it was like gift, um, and different things like that, or gifted one, I think. I'm maybe remembering that incorrectly. But it just seemed to fit. And then the middle name Joy, I actually had one of my godmothers who has always been a motherly figure to me. I said, if you, could have gotten the chance to name me, like, why don't you give me a middle name? And so she came back with the name Joy, but she was like, I really felt attached to the French spelling, which was Joie. And she said, I know that your original childhood, there wasn't that much joy in it. So my hope for you in this next chapter of your life is that you go into it with this rebirth and experiencing joy. And and then the weird thing is I woke up the next morning and I read that text that she had sent me, because I'm a grandma and I go to bed super early and get up super early. I walk out into my living room to get coffee, and there's a pillow sitting on my couch that she gave me for my 30th birthday, and it has the word joy on it. And so I was like, how, there's no coincidences in life. And so that's how we came to the name Shyla Joy.
Oh, I love it. And I also love that you gave yourself the grace to not only like transition without needing to change your name, but then also once a name appeared, because not everything happens in these neat little and nothing happens in neat little compartments, even though I think like we are hypnotized and raised to think that neat little compartments really exist for human beings who are just so different, and constantly evolving. And so I love that now you've found the name that has real resonance and like connection for you. And I want that for you too. I want you to really get to experience love, joy, and peace for this
One,
next.
I think I didn't want to just change my name just for the sake of changing it, which is why I didn't change it, suddenly when I started my transition. It was like, if I'm going to do this, it has to have real meaning behind it.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought, now is a season of my life where I'm not just changing my name because I transitioned. I was perfectly fine being Dylan for the rest of my life. And that Dylan will always be a part of me. I'm not two separate people. It's, two separate names for one soul. And I just thought, I'm changing my name now because it's just a rebirth for my soul. I feel like I'm evolving to the next phase of my life. I'm getting certified as a spiritual life coach as well. And so it's just, it seems like life is, you know, having this emergence into, I guess maybe it's because I'm in my 30s, that maybe that's the natural thing, is that I'm just going into the next phase of life, and why not mark the occasion with a changing of name. So I say that to say it wasn't just because of transitioning or changing my name just for the sake of changing it. There was definitely some symbolism there for me.
Yeah, and I think also something that happens in our 30s is like we had a Saturn return, which is typically around age 27 and a half ish. And your Saturn kind of comes back through your chart every 27 and a half years. So it's crossing back into where it was when you were born. And it's in many ways, I think of Saturn as like our crone wisdom, like at the end of our life, the very end, with all the wisdom of our experience in this lifetime, what would we tell ourselves in that way? In that time where we're off track, right? So for me, like my whole life was off track. And so I got a lot of like scattered bowling pins, like a wrecking ball went through my life. And it really, like, I was like, when is this stuff going to start feeling more settled and back to me and my flow? And it was really not till I was 33. But like, it's like the integration, the early 30s of the integration of the Saturn return lessons and like really a
Mhm.
grounding in of who you are. For me, I got really spiritual when I was 31. Like it was like I needed a spiritual solution in my life, and it really did free me up. And so, and my relationship with God is my favorite thing in my life. And so I think like you've done such a marvelous job like weathering like the truth of who you are and how you want to be in the world. And you do everything with great intention. And before we started recording, we were talking about like the process of revealing a name change to the internet, and like when and how do you change your Instagram name, which I think is like the world's business card. I think of my Instagram, even like in the 6 months I took off from posting, like I still saw it as like a business card that exists, you know? So if people want to look me up, that's a place they can look me up, right? And so it's interesting to think about like when and how you do that. I, as a consumer of people's stories over their lives, I love like when people change their name. I love a grid post that just tells me what's going on, like how it like what's happening here. You know, even my friend Bianca Russo, who's been on this podcast several times, she just changed her Instagram name to Pickleball Bianca, which super makes sense if you know her, right? But like, I needed the grid post to just tell me, like, oh, this is what you're doing and this is how you're evolving. So that's my 2 cents that you didn't ask for.
Well, it's also like it's the modern day, announcement letter.
Yes,
Like back when I was younger, it was like, oh, if people were having a baby or they were getting married, you got an announcement in the mail. But
yes,
now we just do it via Instagram.
yes. Or I remember early, like in the odds, I would get emails from people announcing their name changes. And like at least one out of every three of my queer friends changed their names, whether it had to do with the gender change or not. Like, uh,
Right.
so like a kind of reclamation of how I want to be known, you know? So you get like an email telling you, but now it's, you know, more of an Instagram announcement.
I think too, I think people who, especially those, in the queer community, because you grow up being so quote unquote different.
Hmm.
All of the adults around you, all of society around you tries so hard to tell you who you are
Yes.
that I think when you get old enough to find out who you are, to quote Dolly, you find out and you do it on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it's a claiming of oneself. It's taking your power back. It's saying, I get to write the story, I get to define me, I get to say who and what I am in the world. And so I think that's why you probably see more people in the queer community changing their names and different things like that because it's a taking of your power back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I want to interrupt our episode and announce the best way to support this podcast is my Patreon page. It's Patreon, patreon.com/FKDP, which stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, which is my aerobics class for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. In addition to aerobics that I offer through my Patreon page, I also offer spiritual self-care lessons. So a lot of what I've learned through the process of both caring for myself and nurturing my relationship with spirit, which I think has really lifted a lot off my shoulders, spiritual solution. And it's also helped me create more capacity for my natural giftings in the area of psychic readership and mediumship and things like that. So I'm so excited to offer that to you, whether whatever your path might be. I think if you're called to a spiritual path, this is why we have spiritual life coaches. This is why spirituality is so essential in these bonkers times. I feel so grounded and so high vibration in spite of circumstances. And I think I just want to gift that to people. I think one of my favorite things about psychic readership is just it's helping people have free game from the universe, have things that are like things that your ancestors, your guides want to whisper to you, the land spirits want to invite you to. Like there's a lot of information that can make your road smoother and help you move more towards the joy path and away from the pain path because you're going to learn your lessons one way or the other. And so I offer one-on-one readership. That's a link in the show notes as well. So please support this podcast if you feel so moved, but also please like and subscribe and all the things because that really helps too. And share it with a friend because word of mouth advertising is the very best advertising. Okay, now that was my that was my advertising break, and now we're back to the show. Dylan or Shylah Joy. Look at that. I did it. I corrected myself. Even though Shyla did tell me before we started, she didn't care one way or the other. And I think that's a lovely way to put it because I think there's grace when you have changed something about how you're doing things, right? But there's grace and then there's intention, right? And my intention is to get your name correct um, as smoothly as I can. Okay, so you moved. Like, not only did you change your name, but as someone who's lived in the South your entire life, you are now living in the cold, frigid North. Tell us more.
I know how funny is that when I forget because life just happens so quickly.
Mhm.
And you go through so many changes on like a daily basis. When you're like, oh, catch us up, it didn't even cross my mind to say I moved. Because I'm just like, oh, that's already happened. It's in the back of my mind now.
Uh-huh.
So yes, we moved from East Tennessee to Burlington, Vermont, 16 hours away. I have done that drive more times now than I ever want to do. I've decided that I just want to fly everywhere I have to go, even though in this day and time, flying's even more scary than normal.
Uh-huh.
Um, but we, I it that's another thing that's like a weird dichotomy because I'm a daughter of the South. I open my mouth and people know I'm Southern. It's not something that I could ever pretend isn't who I am. But we live in interesting times right now where I think there are a lot of things happening in the South right now that doesn't always feel safe for people like me and other minorities in the country. And it was just one of those things where I had started to, every time I would get in the car and drive through my town where I was living, I just kept looking around and I would get that feeling of like, this just isn't home anymore. And the level of like grief that I felt for that, because I just kept thinking, you know, this has been my home for 15 years. And, half my life I had spent in the mountains of East Tennessee. And I always tell people that I was born and raised in my small town in North Carolina, but I grew up in East Tennessee because I moved there when I was 17 years old and I became an adult there. And so I found myself in a lot of ways in Tennessee. And I never in my life thought that I would move. And as time went on, it was so strange because I think I tried to fight it at first because even friendships and relationships with chosen family just started to kind of come to an end one by one and for no real reasons. Like it was like people just started drifting away and feeling this separation. And I just kept thinking, you know, God, it's like you're pushing me out of here. And I couldn't figure out why. And my significant other has always loved Vermont, New Hampshire, just the New England area, and visited every year for the last few years. And when we first got together, his intention was to move here. And I was like, I'm never leaving, Tennessee. I'll be here forever. Yeah. Just tell the universe what you're going to do and what your plans are, and it will laugh at you. Um, and so, I finally agreed to come up here on a summer vacation and fell in love with the area. It was like all of the things that I loved about the mountains of Tennessee, minus all the things that I didn't like about it. And so we decided to move, and we moved here back in September. And I can honestly say it has not been all roses and sunshine, and it has not been exactly what I thought life would be like here. But what it allowed me to do was, I mean, I'm completely alone other than my significant other. And so I don't know anyone here. And it's truly like starting life all over again, which is also interesting in this like rebirth and emergence phase that I'm going through. And it has pushed me to get so lonely and so uncomfortable that I was willing to get quiet with myself and God and go, all right, I've been trying to do all the things that I think my purpose is. I've been trying to do all the things that I think I'm supposed to do, that I want to do, my dreams, my desires, and none of it has seemed to work out. So it was like finally, I just said to the universe, I surrender. You tell me what to do because clearly I can't figure it out. Um, you know, and I can honestly say on the other side of this window is Lake Champlain. And so I have a beautiful view of the lake. And I spent 2 months just sitting in a chair looking out at the lake. And most of it was just crying and just grieving and not really knowing what was next. And over time, I started meeting people here in Vermont. And it was just like, it's funny how it works. I've always had a natural gift and a knack to just like draw things out of people. Yeah, I've had people all my life tell me like, "Oh, I just feel like I could tell you anything that you would like. You're not going to judge me." And I've had other people say, "I just feel like I'm supposed to tell you all my secrets." Um, and I've been the person in my friend groups that everyone comes to for advice, and people started saying things to me here, like, you should be a life coach. And I'm like, yeah, I felt that before. And, every time I think I'm going to dip my toe into that, I always pull away and I find something else to do with my time or something else that I think is like my purpose or calling. And, finally, I was in a situation here where I took a job that I haven't totally loved. And I was like, I need to work for myself. Like, I need to find a career where I'm my own boss, I make my own schedule. And it was like, it's so funny. It's like the universe slaps you upside the head sometimes and go, yeah, you big dummy, you know, be a life coach. Like, do use the gifts that you have to serve humanity, to serve the universe, and allow yourself the benefit to work for yourself and make your own schedule while also feeling like the work that you're doing in the world is serving other people and actually making a difference. Um, and so I say that Vermont has not been easy, but it's been purposeful. It has gotten me lonely enough and uncomfortable enough that I was willing to drop all of my defenses and say, okay, you tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Oof. I love that you took a hard time and made it purposeful. I think that is like
I'm a Scorpio.
that's true. And also, I mean, I think, your Scorpio gifting really is drawing the truth out of people because Scorpio is the natural detective of the zodiac. And if you're not careful, a Scorpio will tell you nothing about themselves and will draw everything out of you, your darkest secrets. But people really like to talk about themselves. And so I think that it's a,
Oh, even at Thanksgiving this year, I invited some people, a coworker and her partner over for Thanksgiving dinner, and like halfway through it, I'm just like pretty much having a one-on-one session with them, and my significant other's looking at me like, we can't even get through Thanksgiving without you just like pulling things out of people. And it's like, I wish I could sit here and tell you, oh, I'm just nosy. I just like to be in people's business. But I'm not. I think it's just a spiritual gifting in me
Mhm.
that sees the blocks that people have that prevent them from living the life that they want to live. And it's usually what's preventing them from just allowing themselves to be whole and who they are, because I truly believe that tapping into your authentic self unlocks the door to life. And so when I have conversations with people, it's just an intuitive thing where I start picking up, and I can't. I mean, I guess it's like spiritual Tourette's. I can't help myself but just to be like, tell me more. So just know you can't even come to my house and have dinner without me getting in your business.
That's my preference. I don't like to have small talk. I like to have real talk with people, and I love that. What did you serve for your meal? Because I know you're a great cook, and if you haven't seen Shylah's cooking show on TikTok or Instagram, you're missing out. There's some great recipes there.
Good Southern food for sure. The easier question or shorter answered question would be, what did I not have? So obviously being in Vermont, there's great food here. And one of the things that we love about Vermont, most of the restaurants are all locally owned. There's not a lot of chain restaurants. Vermont doesn't really do fast food. Um, but there's not like, and it's all farm to table, most of the restaurants, so it's very fresh food, but there's not true southern food. Even some of the what I would consider like southern classics, like a good meatloaf and things like that, it's prepared very differently up here. And so of course the southerner in me is like, this is blasphemous, I don't know what this is, but this is not meatloaf. um and so I had to have a true Southern Thanksgiving. I don't really like turkey, so I always do some form of chicken. So I did a baked rosemary and thyme chicken. I did mac and cheese, garlic mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole, deviled eggs, broccoli casserole, dressing, um, black eyed peas, creamed corn, pan gravy for the chicken, pumpkin pie, uh, chocolate chip pecan pie bars, and is that it? I think that might be it. Yeah.
That is so much food for four people. I love that you executed that. I have been longing to make those chocolate chip pecan bars. Those were on your TikTok. And I'm curious, what do you put on top of your sweet potatoes?
The sweet potato casserole.
Yeah.
It's a brown sugar streusel, but I mix so it's brown sugar, flour, chopped pecans. I think that's it, just for on top. Yeah.
Not butter?
Yes, butter.
Yeah. Okay. So classic streusel with pecans. I love that. Okay. Um what was Oh, and I want to just laud you about the chicken. I have to say, I have really turned a corner this year where like I just don't like turkey. I think it's too hard to prepare. It's so we should My bestie Rachel said this. We should have left them in the forest. Like they're not like they literally like pheasant, quail, chicken. Duck even are better birds to cook for people. They come out way better.
Have
Turkey,
more flavor.
they have more flavor. And you don't have to do so much work to even make them edible. And even just like I would take like a little carved turkey breast, on a sandwich once a year maybe, but like I don't even want it on my plate anymore. Like I just like I would rather have dark meat chicken or light meat chicken. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I think that's really all I care for. But for me, like my mother does Thanksgiving the way she wants to do it. And I don't even love to celebrate the holiday because it's a colonizer holiday, right? Like I like grateful meal with friends, feasting because it's Sagittarius season and it's the harvest, right? Like those are the natural rhythms that are much older than even the United States, right? So and the history of Thanksgiving so problematic, right? So like just divorce from that holiday entirely, but also the meat of that holiday. So many friends I know now like serve ham. I'd rather serve a brisket. You know what I mean? Like there's so many other good roast beasts that you could do to feast with friends. Anyway, so I love that you did a chicken.
The only version of turkey I've ever liked is like a home style, like chicken fried turkey breast.
Oh,
And I'm just like, do you know how bad it is that you've got to bread and batter turkey in order for me to really like it? And then, put some type of pan gravy on it. So I don't do that. Last year I did a Parmesan herb crusted baked chicken.
yeah.
So I always do some form of chicken. It's a better bird.
Yeah, it is a better bird. What's in your broccoli casserole?
Well, so this year I made it even harder on myself. I was like, I'm not going to use anything out of a can or like frozen produce. So we did all fresh veggies and I prepared all of the veggies the night before. And so I blanched my broccoli, um, chopped it up kind of more fine, and then it's everything that's bad for you. It's got like cream cheese, mayo, sour cream, uh, shredded Parmesan cheese, the cream of mushroom soup. That was the one thing that I guess was canned that was in it. And then I have special seasoning that I do for most of my dishes. And then I take like a Ritz cracker, um, sleeves of Ritz crackers, and I crumble them up and I pour some melted butter over them, almost make um, like a crust that goes on top. Yeah.
That sounds exactly right for Thanksgiving. Um,
Yeah. You'll give you a heart attack, but you'll be happy about
yeah.
it.
We have done, we don't do this anymore, but we have done a spinach casserole with very similar stuff in it. Cream cheese, mayo, Parmesan cheese, a little breadcrumb moment on top. Anyway, I love that. I love your feast. I love the way you cook. Really, I
Honestly, one
love
of my favorites is the cornbread stuffing. Because I make a big, like my 12-inch skillet size of cornbread the night before.
the recipe is on the TikTok.
It all is also on TikTok, yeah. And so I do that first, and then I have a thing. I don't like to use like pre-packaged seasonings for anything. So I do my own homemade meatloaf seasoning. I do my own homemade taco seasoning, and same thing.
Killen's taco seasoning I have made and it slaps. Highly recommend. Also on the TikTok.
It is very good, and it's one of those things. I never make the tacos never taste the same each time I make it because I'll always like interchange how much I want to do of a different spice just depending on what I'm feeling that night. But the recipe that I have for my cornbread stuffing, it calls for like a Stouffer's like season pack in it, and I was just like, yeah, I can't do that. So I made my own seasoning for it.
Oh, I love it. Our family stuffing, which we don't even make anymore because my mom's partner doesn't like it. So she only likes stovetop stuffing. So that's what we have at our meal. Anyway, I have a lot
In
of
the
fun.
South, we would say, bless her heart.
Bless her heart. And there are years like when it's more than just the three of us for dinner that we've made two stuffings. And so our family stuffing is a Frito stuffing. And I like to do it with not Fritos, but with the Trader Joe's corn chips because it just has less chemicals in it. It's a better taste. But what I've realized is it's essentially a form of cornbread stuffing without making cornbread. um, in its own little way. Because like essentially that's where the breading is coming from is like a corn chip instead of a cornbread. But like it's a little there's a little stuffing.
Hmm.
It's not the same, but it's similar. And it's just it's what we had growing up. We always had it, it's like a recipe that's been in my family now for like 45 years. It's kind of nuts to think about how long these things happen. But I genuinely believe the green bean casserole was an old family recipe till I was in my late teens and I saw the side of a can of French fried onions and I was like, this isn't a family recipe.
I don't really like green bean casserole. My significant other does. I don't really like green beans, to be honest with you, which I know is probably blasphemous for some Southerners because we have this thing about like I don't like Southern green beans. You chop them up, you cook them to death. Um, and they're like soggy and I just don't like it. I much prefer a French cooked green bean that still has some crunch to it. So I saute um my green beans and I cook that a lot, but I don't really like a green bean casserole, but I substitute and do the broccoli.
I love green bean casserole. And my mom, she totally admitted because she was the first one to eat it, but she admitted that it was just a different flavor this year because she bought roasted garlic cream of mushroom soup, which I
Mm.
love roasted garlic. And you think that the green bean casserole might be improved, but it is not because like you want the aromatic moment to be the French fried onion. The cream of mushroom soup in a green bean casserole is simply like I think the casserole part of it. And the star of that show is the crunchy onion, which like the roasted garlic did not do. And I will also say, I don't think Campbell's did the flavoring of their roasted garlic cream of mushroom soup. And I've made my own cream of mushroom soup a few times because I go in and out of being dairy free and making it yourself, it's dairy free. And I would say, like, I would do my own roasted garlic cream of mushroom soup and could do it far better than Campbell's executed, but it's neither here
I
nor
love garlic.
I love garlic too. I always double the amount of garlic that a recipe calls for. And I will say the end of that story is we threw that casserole away. Like we didn't
No,
eat it. It was like
we're
one of
still
those.
eating all our Thanksgiving stuff.
Yeah, I will say I think if this is one of those years where like it was so comically bad that like, that makes the memory. And so and it's given me permission actually to make some holiday favorites that we wouldn't normally include because there's just, three people for a meal is still, you know. So I'm gonna make a corn pudding, which I don't usually do. And we didn't even have sweet potatoes at our dinner, so I'm gonna make your topping because
Oh my gosh.
I want to do a streusel topping and a marshmallow topping and just make them at the same time and bring them over for mom and Pat so we can all just have, these little flavors throughout the holiday season. I think we can all do holidays the way we want to. And
Yeah, my thing is everybody was like, why are you cooking so much food for only a few people? And it's just in my mind for the holidays, I am from the South and we have a big spread of food because it's normally for the entire family. And so I just think, well, if I have leftover food, if we're not going to eat it, I make plates and give to the neighbors or go
mhm.
down to the park and feed some of the homeless people. Like, somebody will eat this food, but I want all of the things that are traditional for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like sometimes you make the meal for the people you're serving and sometimes you make the meal for you. And I think and the people you're serving are just lucky. So I think that's it's marvelous. Thank you for sharing your meal with us. I look forward to someday getting to share a holiday meal with you. I feel like it would be very fun both to cook.
One of these days, I will have my property, and I can't wait to do like a big Friendsgiving or something like that. Because I this old Southern lady that's deep inside my soul loves to cook for people.
Yes, absolutely. I love cooking for people, but I also love entertaining and hosting. And like that's also big in my heart to want to get to do in life is to have property so that I can host and like a big kitchen so that, people who are good at cooking can be cooking and people who are good at helping can be helping and all of that.
I
And
just have an earlier bedtime than you do, so I want people to come. I want them to eat, and then I want them to leave.
listen, this is why and I think this is also good for anyone who's into manifesting and dreaming is like in that time when you're waking up and when you're going to sleep is the most the most malleable time for your brain. So those are good times to take 5 minutes and just, for me, like I like to walk through my house, like I like to design it. I like to think about who's in there. I like to think about where, like this time of year, where's the Christmas tree? I like to, and so in my property, like I have tiny houses around so that my friends can come and be, and just like, because I live quite over the river and through the woods.
Mm.
So it is a journey to get here. And so I want my friends to be able to come, be greeted, and then be able to just like kind of arrive. You know what I mean? And like not have to be in the mix of things. And so I think and I really want to have like a nice fire pit and to have like all the holiday meals and even dinners just like end up at the fire pit, and then like people can wander back out to their tiny house accommodations. I feel like I want property and I want people to feel like they get to be here, but they don't have to be up in the biz. And when I would visit my mom when I wasn't living here, I would sleep for 12 hours a night because it was just the clean air and the relaxation like really hit my body and it's what I needed. And I was staying, not in their house,
I'm
but
coming to your house.
come, come, come.
I can barely sleep six.
Wow. I mean, listen, some people, Dolly Rebecca Parton sleeps 4 hours a night. Some people are just wired that way. I am wired to sleep. And so I'm ready to be cozy. I'm ready. Like, and the later the night is, like, the more, like, like there are certain people I won't talk to after 7 p.m. Like, I won't talk to someone who's not safe for me after 7 p.m. I'm just like, this is my time to not have to be on guard anymore and to be getting towards sleeping. And in the morning too, I need to have my like sit and stare time and like my arriving to the daytime. And I know you do a strong morning devotional. And tell me more about what's your morning routine looking like these days?
Um, it depends on if it's a weekday or if it's a weekend day. Usually, if it's a weekend day, I have less time for myself and more time as a couple. We kind of, whoever gets up first, sometimes because I'm just such an early riser, I'll awake before him and make a cup of coffee, and then I come back to the bed, and then he will roll over, and I'll have him like around like this side of me, like with his head kind of in my lap. And then Willow, my cat, comes and jumps into the other side of the bed. So she's laying on this leg. And so I'll just kind of close my eyes, meditate a little bit. And then once I have that quiet time, I'll pull my phone out, check emails. And these days, like TikTok sucks me in. And so I'll start, scrolling. But on a perfect day, especially like on Mondays, that today's like my day to have time to myself. I make my coffee, I come in here into the living room and I'll open the blinds and look out at Lake Champlain and have my quiet time and do my devotionals. Here lately, I actually have this one. It's called Journey to the Heart. Um, by Melody Beattie. And so I'll do the devotional for the day for this. And it's perfect for people if you don't subscribe to a specific religion or specific like spiritual practice. It's a great option for you.
And she wrote the book Codependent No More, which is a classic and very well known. So
Mhm.
that's a really good one to like mind your emotional business.
Yes, and then I'll read from whatever other book I'm flipping through for that particular season time,
I love it.
which
Um,
always changes.
and I love that you get to have your morning time like still snuggled up with your loves.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Um,
Yeah, I like a slow morning. I mean, to me, like sometimes my slow mornings can last for hours because I get so caught up in that time to myself, um, that sometimes if I'm not careful, I'll have to have a little kick in the butt to get my day started because some days I can stay in my satin pajamas with a coffee mug all day and just enjoy quiet time.
yeah. Okay, I want to take a right turn and come into let's talk about shining our light in dim times because I think that you are such a light in the world. And I think for those of us who have a lot of light to offer, it's because we also have spent the time to witness and be present with our darkness and the things that are hard. And I think you've definitely walked that road. And I have been recently kind of rejuvenated in my efforts to just because like there's a lot of people ask like what's my purpose in life, and like I think our grander purpose is really literally just to show up and wait for resonance, and like wait for the whispers of like whoever you want to call it, the Holy Spirit, your spirit team, like a knowing, right? Like that's because I think in many ways like we're the star of the show in our own life, but we're like a spear carrier in the background of like this larger drama that's playing, and that's like where divine timing comes in, right? But I do think there's a lot of purpose in showing up and shining your light. So like doing the things like the morning routine and the things that like the self-care, the cultivation, to then show up and like shine your light for and around people in spite of how they interact with your light. And so I'm curious, and also like there was this so Amma is like this hugging saint. If you haven't heard of her, she like goes around and she literally hugs people. That's like her ministry. And people follow her around. I just found out her ashram is like literally right down the street from my middle school, which like I have
Oh,
a lot of thoughts about my terrible suburb that I grew up in and my experience there. But wow, a spiritual ashram so close to me. I didn't know. But anyway, so she said in a recent talk that like those of us who are grounded and high vibration have a responsibility to carry our light out into the world. Because it can be very easy to just like fall into protecting our peace and like not getting out there. So I'm curious for you what your thoughts are on that.
yeah, I mean, I think I have fallen victim of really putting those walls up. I think that this last year, there's just been so much vitriol, especially in our country, so much division that it's like we actually were talking about before we started recording of how different people are when you go out in public, even just in the service industry. You can tell that people who have to serve the public are just tired and worn down. And I think it is a I think it's a universal anxiousness that is just in like the cellular DNA of humankind right now, especially for those of us in this country and in other countries where, wars are happening where you're feeling it. People I think they're just tapped out. They're burned out. There's, every time you turn on the TV, it's something negative. It's another group of people that are being attacked. It's another, law that's being passed that negatively affects a different group of people, or, these horrible crimes that are happening against, our fellow mankind. And you can't escape that. Trauma is energy. And we have our own, you know trauma that we've personally dealt with that's trapped in there, unless you learn how to transmute that and move that energy through. But they're also just on in the collective, we feel that energy. It's why there's a such thing as generational trauma, um that that's passed down just in your family bloodline. But I think as a collective humankind species, we're just feeling tapped out. You there, especially if you're an empath. And I think a lot of most light workers are empaths. You have to feel what's out there in order to work with the energy. And I think it's really hard, even for the light workers right now, to want to shine their light. It's much easier. And I'm speaking for myself, maybe to just stay at home and go, I don't want to participate in the negative energy. And yeah, I think some of the past 2 years for myself, I've been grieving my own personal things. But I think as someone who feels other people's energy on a deep level, I think I just feel a universal grief that we're all going through as humankind. And I do believe that on a spiritual level, a shift is happening. And I think that we are feeling growing pains. And, change is hard. And there are a lot of people who resist change. And I think right now there's a good chunk of the collective that is resisting this shift that is trying to be birthed. And I think something that I have had to really kind of set myself straight on is, if you know that you have a higher calling and a higher purpose, you know that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, has called you forward to help people, to help facilitate other people's healings and moving into this shift, this transition, if you'll pardon the expression, um, you've got to show up. And so something that I try to remind myself of daily is the prayer that is in A Course in Miracles, which is you know, Lord, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom?
Mhm.
And I think that that is a very simple prayer. And I think sometimes, especially for those of us who grew up with religious trauma, we think we've got to light the candles and turn the music on and, make this big performance to God or whatever you call that higher power. And it's just very simple. It's just a getting still, getting quiet, and just saying to the universe, I'm here, I'm open, and I'm willing. Direct me on what you would have me do and say. And so that has been my prayer lately is just guide me, tell me where I'm supposed to go, tell me what I'm supposed to say and what I'm supposed to do. And I know that there are a lot of people going through really hard times right now. And I don't, as much as I want to put a positive spin on it and say that everything we go through has purpose, I do believe that on a certain level. But there are some people right now going through some horrific things. I mean, just horrible things that should not be done to human beings, period. And I don't care what your political views are. We've got to get to a point where we can call a thing a thing. And some of the things that is being done to other human beings on this planet right now is just it's disgusting. It's not okay. And I think that we have got to be willing to say this has to stop. And I think it's going to take people like you and I who are, healers and want to facilitate that, standing up and speaking out. And so that is again part of the reason why I have felt the call and the push forward to become a spiritual life coach to say, hey, I am here to help facilitate this. Because it's going to take us one by one tapping into that, um, as a collective to really see the change that we need. Um, and it's kind of one of those things where the universe is going to do what the universe is going to do. If a shift is happening, if a spiritual awakening is happening, if a change in consciousness is happening, it's going to happen whether we're ready for it or not, whether we want to be a part of it or not. So it's like you can either surrender and go peacefully, or you can get drug along. And I think I've gone through enough dragging in my life that I want to go peacefully.
Yes, absolutely. This is harkens back to what I said before about the joy path or the pain path. And the change will come or you will be inspired to make the change in the gentler way, right? I love what you said. I just think that we need people in our lives. Like I have a therapist who holds space for me and is very grounded in high vibration. I have other spiritual advisors that I seek because we're all too close to the forest to see the trees. And like having people who can like hold space for you is part of my like important self-care. And I think that's how a lot of people are out there raw dogging life and like miserable and they don't realize like, what it takes to really like stay in your light, grounded enough to share it with other people. Because again, I think that was it was
And
an
I think the key to that is a daily spiritual practice.
yes.
And I can honestly say, when things in my own life get super stressful, or when I feel super disconnected, it's because I'm not staying on top of my practice. Which is why, again, I choose to get up early. I choose to have that quiet time to get that direction from the universe. Because if you're, it's like electricity. If you don't plug the lamp in, the light's not going to turn on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's when it's like a trauma response to externalize your safety and to try to create the world you need, get the people in your life to never say that thing or do that thing. You know what I mean? And there's ways in which like I'm a sensitive person and so I choose not to do certain behaviors or watch certain types of like I'm not a horror movie person. I don't even like stressful movies, frankly. Like I just want to like cultivate my vibe, right? But I also have really worked hard to release a lot of the trauma in my body and to, um, you know, support my nervous system so that I'm feel calm all the time and I know that my safety is inside me. And I've really rearranged how much I care about what other people think of me. And so I think if you're going to go out there and shine your light, like that is an important practice because like I get, you know, I wouldn't say even majority weird looks or weird interactions, but I get delight here and there, and you can see someone's face light up when you offer a compliment, and so like I'm always like one of my rules is if I see something and I think of a compliment, I say something, even if it feels weird, even if I'm interrupting someone. I want to be a positive, enthusiastic interruption in people's days.
Yeah, I think for me, I have this thing where I really feel like part of my purpose is giving other people permission to just show up as they are.
Mm.
Um, and so anytime I'm out in public, and if, people have a tendency to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, blank." And it's always like asking for apology about taking up space or just fundamentally like existing. And I'd always make it a habit to go, "Honey, you're fine. You just be you. Like you don't need to apologize for taking up space. You don't need to apologize for being you. Like you're allowed to do that. Despite what society may tell you, you are allowed to take up space exactly as you are."
Yes. Okay. And I think that's a perfect segue to the third topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is cosmetic surgery. Because if we're all okay exactly as we are, right? Like my nemesis is beauty standards. Like I'm here to just make it okay for people to just have human diversity and not have to conform for their own belonging or showing up. And also, we have cosmetic surgery available to us. So I think there's like an important and I was really inspired to talk about this because of the secret lives of Mormon wives and all those women like having so much plastic surgery to look just like each other. Like it's actually very hard to figure out who's who because they all look exactly alike. They all have the same hair extensions, like, and it's really actually astounding. And I wouldn't have guessed how much plastic surgery was amongst them, but there was a lot. And I think they're really normal. Like one of them had like three in the first season, had like three like vulvoplasties. And I'm like, that is totally not something you need to get.
I'm like, Lord, how tight can you make that thing?
Exactly. And like, why? Like, and then you're like putting yourself off of sex for like how long, how many times? Like, you know what I mean? I just think there was something much underneath all of that, which is like the inherent insecurity of not being worthy enough exactly as you are. And so
Right.
I've always had really strong opinions about cosmetic surgery because I grew up with a grandmother who was like, who really, I think, traumatized my mom and her sisters by constantly changing her aesthetic cosmetic, like with cosmetic surgery. So, like, I think anyway, so like I feel like really strongly like you're enough as you are, and also you get to do what you want to do with your aesthetic to feel good about yourself and like how you want to be, right? And so I'm curious for you because you've worked in a lot of med spas and you've had some procedures done too, like that look incredible. Like whatever you had done with your neck that one time was like extraordinary. I made you tell me what it was so I could write it in a note. So someday
Yeah, I
I
mean,
too might do it.
so for those who want to know the procedure that I had done, I had a minor neck lift while also doing some minor liposuction to get rid of genetic double chin. And then we used a device called Face Tight by InMode. A lot of people probably won't know what that is. If you're familiar with med spa procedures, there's a procedure called Morpheus 8, which is radio frequency microneedling. Um, Face Tight is from a device called Ignite, which is made by InMode, so the same manufacturers as Morpheus 8. It's just another way to disperse radio frequency. And so it goes in, and those bursts of radio frequency help blast whatever remaining fat may be in the area, as well as causing some tightness and some rejuvenation to the area. So I did that with the Face Tight just to help heighten that because I just had a genetically, um, you know, big neck, just had a double chin area. And it was always an insecurity of mine. And it changed. my facial structure. I thought like I had a recessed chin and all these things, and all it was just extra volume in this area. And I'll never forget when I had the initial consultation with my plastic surgeon in Nashville. She was like, "You actually have a great like jawline. It's just hidden from this." And so I guess I probably have a different approach to plastic surgery. I think that if you are approaching the idea of plastic surgery because it's coming from a place of you don't feel good enough, you don't feel worthy enough, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. For me, I see plastic surgery as a tool in the tool belt. Um, if a person has crooked teeth, that makes them feel uncomfortable, they get braces. If you break a bone, you get a cast. If you want to play with your hair color, you go to the salon and you get your hair dyed. To me, it's no different. But I think it's because, and maybe this comes from being trans. I don't see myself as just a body. I see myself as a soul, and the body is just what's housing the soul. And so I don't think it's wrong of me to paint my house or redecorate my house, and this is just the house for my soul. Um, which is always my argument with a lot of religious people who are like, "Oh, you're going to go to hell for being trans," and I'm like, "Well, I hate to break it to you, but this body is going to stay here on earth. It would be the soul that would go to heaven." Um, so I that that um that understanding doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but that's how I feel about plastic surgery. I agree that we have created an entire industry as a society that tells women they need to achieve a certain look. And I think that if you're someone who falls prey to that and you know, excuse me, your insecurities can get the best of you, then I think you need to do some inner work before you try to do some outer work. Um, for me, I didn't start having any work done until around the time of my starting my transition. And a lot of it was to help feminize some of the areas that felt masculine to me. And so, yes, was I changing certain things about my body. Yeah, but it was to change it to be in alignment with who I felt I was. And so I love plastic surgery when you're using it as a tool in the tool belt to align with who you feel inside. If you're doing it from a place of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not pretty enough, and I need to physically alter myself to have some sort of enoughness, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. Because I promise you, you can have all the boob jobs, nose jobs that you want. If you don't feel like you're enough, no amount of plastic surgery is going to make you feel like you're enough. And you may even look in the mirror and get the euphoria of the physicality changing and going, oh, I think this nose looks better than my original nose, but you're just going to jump to something else. It's going to be your jaw or your lips or your, whatever it is, your boobs, your butt, your waist. You're just going to move on to the next thing because it was never about having something done to make you feel more aligned with who you are inside. It was coming from a place of, if I do this, it's going to make me enough.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. Everywhere you go, there you are. Also, I really love like a late in life dental journey where people like get to have the glow up on their teeth. I work with a lot of people who are really good at like helping people get debt free and all of that kind of stuff. And the one kind of debt they support is dental debt because like it changes how people feel from the inside out. Like there's something that's like really hiding your smile if you feel like your teeth aren't enough, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, and I just like I feel very mixed about it because I don't want to poop on anyone's choice of how they decorate their vessel, right? Because I really just love that in these times we get to choose our hair colors. Like we get to have frankly running hot water and heat in the home is like new as of 150 years ago, you know? So like these are like there's so much that we have access to now that's nice to celebrate and also like like the Mormon culture is really just hinges on women not being enough specifically. Like there's nothing you can do that's enough. Like the standards are so high and so impossible. And so it kind of
But I would also say that some of that is about men.
oh,
Because in the Mormon culture, a lot of men, polygamy is a thing. They are allowed to have multiple wives. And I think that a lot of beauty standards is about, well, if you don't do this, your man is just going to go find
yes.
some other woman who looks a certain way.
Uh-huh. It's all about the patriarchy. It's all about like because the patriarchy is rooted in white supremacy, and white supremacy is rooted in how you're supposed to look and beauty standards. And like the Mormon church is definitely about centering men and centering men's needs. And in a patriarchy, a woman's value is her proximity to white maleness and wealth, financial wealth. So yes, like that's where that all kind of hinges from. But I will also say, like, I think that culture really like gets ingrained in them. And so there's so much plastic surgery in Utah
Mhm.
specifically. And like the way that they all want to conform to this specific aesthetic is like it's bonkers to me. And I think there's nothing in pop culture that shows us this as much as Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. But I really just want to like take a stand and use my, little humble platform here to just give people a different way to think about cosmetic surgery. And so I'm really glad you were willing to talk about that because you clearly like have
Well, I
experience.
also think there are two different paths to acceptance of oneself. And
Mhm.
working in the med spa industry where, we offer a lot of these procedures to people, I I've seen how healing it can be for some people, because there are some people that unfortunately, may have deep acne scarring, or there may be a deformity to their face. And they, unfortunately, because of how society is, that people don't always see their light. Because we are a very like beauty led society, there are a lot of people who I think don't feel like they get to let their light be seen because they have certain things. And it's like, by getting some treatments done to get rid of some acne scarring or fix a crooked nose, if that can free you up to be seen for who you are, I think that's a small price to pay. Um, and I think as much as there's pressure for people to have procedures done to look a certain way, I can also say that as someone who has done content and put myself out there on the public platform, y- all of my like hate comments and trolling that I get is always about my appearance and things that I've had done. Like, you would think that the easiest like low hanging fruit thing to come after me would be being trans, especially right now because we're so hated in the media in this country. But it's not. People lose their minds over my lips. Yeah, I've obviously had lip filler done. I haven't had I've not had any filler put in my lips in 2 years. They're just, this is where they are. My own natural collagen has filled in from having them done. I haven't had them touched up in 2 years. But, if you get on my social media, you see comments where people are like, oh, did you just leave the plastic surgeon's office? No, I didn't. So it's like two sides of the same coin, because you have some people that are being told they're not enough and they need to have it done, and then you have people like me who see it as a tool and to just enhance what's already there, and am ridiculed for it. I mean, look at people like, you know Joan Rivers, who was this brilliant comedic mind, and people could not get past the fact that she had had plastic surgery.
And I think there's also culture around women's aesthetic being your business to talk about, which it is not, or anyone's aesthetic being your business to talk about. I also want to say this. I know it's trite, but it's true. People who are successful do not take the time to criticize people on the internet. So those voices are always coming from people who have mediocre lives that are not focusing on because they're instead trying to tear someone down. Some people only feel tall when other people are on their knees, and that is sad. And so I think there's that too. But you're right. Like it's definitely you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. People don't want to see people trying. And that's the only way you get something done is because you start doing something. So and Joan Rivers loved her aesthetic and like loved, and Dolly Parton too, my favorite, like Dolly loves to tweak and do and like and touch up and refresh and like they don't mind to be seen with the plastic surgery aesthetic because I think there is like a very physical aesthetic. Like you said this to me. We had a private one-on-one conversation a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about like the lips where it's like pushed out. Like,
Yeah, it's because once you start lifting the face so many times, it just gets so tight that the inner corners of the lips start to kind of turn in because it's just as you're pulling, it's going in. So you're just getting more of that. A lot of people call it the Joker look.
yes.
Um, and it's funny. People have asked me many times because I used to work for Dolly, so I've been around her a lot, and I've, obviously seen her up close and personal. And people are always like, "Oh, well, when you see her like face to face, is the plastic surgery as noticeable?" And I always say it's really not that noticeable in person. And I always say the thing that I notice the most is her lips, just because that area is so tight, they do kind of protrude forward a little bit. But I mean, you're also talking to someone who has big lips. And I get a kick out of it at this point. Like I think people think they hurt my feelings by saying these things on the internet, but it makes me giggle. And I usually just troll them back and put the little lip print emojis underneath their comments because I'm just like, yeah, my lips are big, but they're not big enough for me to kiss your ass to make you like me. So,
Oh, I like that. And I also think so. What was interesting to me the first time I ever saw Dolly in person, was that she looked more. It was funny because she looks younger on screen than she does in person, which it was surprising to me. She looked so much like my grandmother when I saw her, and she's like, probably I think she's like 12 years younger than my grandmother, something like that. And but it was just interesting to me. And in many ways it made me love her more because like I love my grandmother so much. And like but like an older, beautiful, elegant woman with plastic surgery. You know what I mean? And like that's
mhm.
kind of the aesthetic that she has. But I think for me, like Dolly's light, she just shines the light of God through her. Coming back to what we were talking about, shining our light, like that, I think no matter what she looks like, and I know she doesn't think of herself as pretty. And like she when she was casting her musical about her life and like casting so or when she cast her TV movie about her life, she cast the little girl, and I remember her telling the little girl, well, you're much prettier than I was. And I'm just like, wow. And so it's like to me, I just see right through that to like this like wounded inner part of her that's still not fully healed, even in spite of all
Mhm.
the all of the it costs this much to look this cheap aesthetic. That's her quote. But I love her. She can do no wrong. You know what I mean? Like I like,
Well, I
yeah.
think too, once you get to a certain point, and Joan Rivers used to have to do this too, once you have had that much work done, you kind of have to make yourself the butt of the joke because it is so obvious. And I think that you kind of take the power out of it. And I think sometimes I've taken a cue from them as well. Like I had a new nail person that I go to since moving here, and she had been recommended to me by multiple clients, and we were sitting like halfway through the appointment, and she goes, "I think I know who you are." She's like, "I think I know who recommended you." I remember them having a conversation, and my joke was, "Oh yeah, they told you the redhead with the big lips would be coming in."
Oh my God, that's hilarious. But you're gorgeous and iconic and hard to miss. And so I just adore you so much. For people who want to get in on spiritual life coaching, because I know at some point you're going to need to be practicing, which is a great way to slide in at a lower price point with folks is when they're practicing. How can people reach you and find you on this great wide internet?
So as of right now, all of my social media is still under my previous name. So it's the THE _ Hill, and that all of my social media, that's the same handle. I don't know what I will be changing it to with the name change. But hopefully by the time this episode comes out, all of that will be updated. So those links will be in the show notes.
Great.
And so I have a link tree that if you find one of my accounts, you can find all of my accounts.
Great. That's what I was going to ask you for is a link tree. So I will post a link to the link tree. And then as Dylan or as Shylah Joy is shifting away from the previous moniker of Dylan, um, will know how to catch you and how to stay connected. And I just love you so much. Thank you for your friendship and your love and your light and for sharing with my wonderful audience.
Yes, thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you.